The Sukhoi Su-33 is an all-weather carrier-based twin-engined air superiority fighter designed by Sukhoi and manufactured by Komsomolsk-on-Amur Aircraft Production Association, derived from the Su-27 flanker and initially known as the Su-27K. Compared with the Su-27, the Su-33 has a strengthened undercarriage and structure, folding wings and stabilators, all for carrier operations. The Su-33 has canards and its wings are larger than the Su-27 for increased lift. The Su-33 has upgraded engines and a twin-nose wheel, and is air refuelable. First used in operations in 1995 aboard the carrier Admiral Kuznetsov, the fighter officially entered service in August 1998, by which time the designation Su-33 was used. Following the breakup of the Soviet Union and the subsequent downsizing of the Russian Navy, only 24 aircraft were produced. Attempted sales to China and India fell through, with plans to retire the Su-33 once they reached the end of their service life. The Russian Navy ordered the MiG-29K as a replacement in 2009. Development, background and origins. During the 1970s, the Yakovlev Yak-38, then the Soviet Navy's only operational carrier-based fixed-wing combat aircraft, was found to be unable to undertake its role due to limited range and payload, which severely hampered the capability of the Soviet Navy's Project 1143 carriers. It was decided to develop a bigger and more potent carrier capable of operating SDOL aircraft. During the assessment period, a number of carriers were studied. The Project 1160 carrier would have been able to operate the MiG-23s and Su-24s, but was abandoned due to budget constraints. Design efforts were then concentrated on the Project 1153 carrier, which would have accommodated the Su-25s and the proposed MiG-23 kiloseconds and Su-27 kiloseconds. Sufficient funding was not secured, and the Navy looked at the possibility of a fifth, and larger, Project 1143 carrier, modified to allow for Yak-141, MiG-29K and Su-27K operations. To prepare for the operations of the Su-27K and the rival MiG-29K on board the new carrier, work proceeded on the development of the steam catapult, arresting gear, optical and radio landing systems. The pilots were trained at a new establishment in Crimea, named NITK for Aviation Research and Training Complex. In 1981, the Soviet government ordered the abandonment of the catapult system as part of an overall downsize of Project 1143.5 carriers, which also included cancelling the fifth Project 1143 carrier and the Variag. A takeoff ramp was installed at the complex, where takeoffs would be executed to ensure that the Su-27 kiloseconds and MiG-29 kiloseconds would be able to operate from carriers. Both Sukhoi and Mikoyan modified the prototypes to validate the takeoff ramp. 3 Sukhoi T-10s, along with an Su-27UB, were used for takeoffs from the simulated ramp. The first of these tests were undertaken by Nikolai Sadovnikov on the 28th of August 1982. Flight tests indicated the need for a change in ramp design, and it was modified to a ski jump profile. Conceptual designs of the Su-27K commenced in 1978. On the 18th of April 1984, the Soviet government instructed Sukhoi to develop an air defense fighter. Mikoyan was ordered to build a lighter multi-role fighter. Full-scale design of the Su-27K soon started as the T-10K. Under the guidance of Konstantin Marbashev, Nikolai Sadovnikov was appointed the Design Bureau's chief test pilot for the program. By November 1984, 1984, conceptual design had passed its critical design review, with the detailed design finalized in 1986. The two prototypes were constructed in conjunction with NAPO in 1986–1987, testing the first Su-27K prototype piloted by Viktor Pugacki, made its maiden flight on 17 August 1987 at the NITKA facility, the second followed on 22 December. Flight tests continued at NITKA where Su-27 kiloseconds and MiG-29 kiloseconds demonstrated and validated the feasibility of ski jump operations. The pilots also practiced no-flare landings before making an actual landing on a carrier deck. It was another 2 years before the Tbilisi, subsequently renamed Admiral Kuznetsov, left the shipyard. Viktor Pugacki, piloting the second Su-27K, became the first Russian to conventionally land aboard an aircraft carrier on 1 November 1989. It was found that the carrier's jet blast deflectors were too close to the engine nozzles when raised at an angle of 60 degrees, thus an improvised solution held the deflectors at 45 degrees. However, when the aircraft was in front of it for longer than the maximum 6 seconds, the shield's water pipes exploded. The pilot, Pugacki, reduced engine throttle, accidentally causing the detents to retract and the fighter to move forwards. The aircraft was quickly stopped. Pugacki later took off without the use of blast deflectors or detents. Since then, a Kamov Ka-27PS search and rescue helicopter was flown close to the carrier in the event of an accident. During the following 3-week period, 227 sorties were amassed, along with 35 deck landings. Flight testing continued afterwards, and on 26 September 1991, naval pilots began testing the Su-27K. By 1994, it had successfully passed the state acceptance trials. During 1991, 7 production aircraft were rolled out. Further developments: the first of 2 known versions of the Su-33, the twin-seat Su-33UB, made its first flight in April 1999. The aircraft, piloted by Viktor Pugacki and Sergei Melnikov, flew for 40 minutes near Ramenskoye Airport. The Su-33UB was planned to be a trainer, but with the potential to fill other roles. Notable improvements over the Su-33 included a revised forward fuselage and leading-edge slats, bigger wings and stabilators. In 2010, Sukhoi developed an updated version of the Su-33. Flight trials began in October 2010. This modernized Su-33 was to compete with a potential Chinese indigenous version of the original Su-33, and to encourage orders from the Russian Navy. Major upgrades to the aircraft included more powerful AL-31FM-1 engines and a larger weapons carriage. Upgrades to the radar and weapons were not possible at the time due to funding constraints. According to military author Richard Fisher, it has been speculated that further modifications to a new production batch would include a phased array radar, thrust vectoring nozzles, and long-range anti-ship missiles, designed to adapt the original Su-27 for naval operations. Sukhoi first incorporated a reinforced structure and undercarriage to withstand the great stress experienced upon landing, particularly quick descents and non-flare landings. The leading-edge slats, flaperons and other control surfaces are enlarged to provide increased lift and maneuverability. Su-30 at low speeds. Although the wingspan remains unchanged, the wings feature double-slotted flaps and outboard drooping ailerons. In total, the refinements enlarge the wing area by 10 to 12%. The wings and stabilators are modified for folding to maximize the number of aircraft the carrier can accommodate and to allow ease of movement on deck. The aircraft is outfitted with more powerful turbofan engines to increase thrust-to-weight ratio, as well as an in-flight refueling probe. The Su-33 sports canards that shorten the takeoff distance and improve maneuverability, but have required reshaping of the leading-edge root extensions. The rear radome is shortened and reshaped to prevent it striking the deck during high-alpha landings. Compared with the rival MiG-29K, the Su-33's maximum takeoff weight is 50% higher. Fuel capacity is more than double, allowing it to fly 80% further at altitude. The MiG-29K can spend as much time as the Su-33 on station by using external fuel tanks, but this limits its ordnance capacity. The Su-33 can fly at speeds as low as 240 km/h. In comparison, the MiG-29K needs to maintain a minimum of 250 km/h for effective control. However, the MiG-29K carries more air-to-ground munitions than the Su-33. The Su-33 is more expensive and physically larger than the MiG-29K, limiting the numbers able to be deployed on an aircraft carrier. The Su-33 carries guided missiles such as the R-73 and R-27E on 12 hardpoints, supplemented by the 150-round 30mm GSH-30-1. It can carry an assortment of unguided rockets, bombs and cluster bombs for secondary air-to-ground missions. The aircraft can be used in both night and day operations at sea. The radar used, slot back, has been speculated to have poor multi-target tracking, making the Su-33 reliant on other radar platforms and airborne warning and control system aircraft like the Ka-31 early warning helicopter. The R-27EM missiles have the capability to intercept anti-ship missiles. The infrared search and track system is placed to provide better downward visibility. Operational history: Soviet Union and Russia. The Su-27K entered service in the mid-1990s. From December 1995 to March 1996, the Admiral Kuznetsov set sail in the Mediterranean Sea, carrying two Su-25 UTGs, 9 Ka-27s, and 13 Su-27 kiloseconds. However, the aircraft officially entered service the 31st of August 1998 with the 279th Naval Fighter Regiment of the Northern Fleet based at Sevomorsk-A3, by which time it was officially designated the Su-33. The Russian Navy currently operates 19 Su-33s, however in the long term these need to be replaced. With the breakup of the Soviet Union, the Russian Navy was dramatically downsized, with many shipbuilding programs stopped. Had the Varyag or Yol and Ulyanovsk been commissioned, a total of 72 production airframes would have been built. The early airborne warning and MiG-29K would also have proceeded, instead of being abandoned. Only 24 examples were built at the time Varyag was sold to China. In 2009, the Russian Navy announced an order for 24 MiG-29 kiloseconds to replace the Su-33, to be delivered from 2011 to 2015. However, in 2015, Major General Igor Kozhin, the commander of the Navy's Air and Air Defense Forces, announced that a second fighter regiment would be formed to augment the current force, with the intention that the MiG-29s be used by this new unit, with the existing Su-33s refurbished for further use. Failed bids. Internationally, the People's Republic of China was identified as a possible export customer. Russia's state weapons exporter, Rosoboronexport, was previously negotiating an order of 50 aircraft totaling $2.5 billion. China would have initially acquired 2 aircraft worth $100 million for testing and then have further options to acquire an additional 12 to 48 aircraft. The fighters were intended to be used with the fledgling Chinese aircraft carrier program, with the former Soviet carrier Varyag as the centerpiece. At the 6th Zhuhai Air Show in late 2006, Lieutenant General Alexander Denisov publicly confirmed at a news conference that China had approached Russia for the possible purchase of Su-33s, and negotiations were to start in 2007. On the 1st of November 2006, the Xinhua news agency published the information on its military website that China planned to introduce the Su-33. China had previously obtained a manufacturing license for Su-27 production. Sukhoi is working on a more advanced version, the Su-33K, a development to integrate the advanced technologies of the Su-35 fighters into the older Su-33 airframe. However, worries over other Chinese intentions emerged when it was reported that China had acquired one of the T-10Ks and Su-33 prototype from Ukraine, potentially to study and reverse engineer a domestic version. Various aircraft are alleged to have originated partially from the Su-33, such as the Shenyang J-11B and the Shenyang J-15. Photos of Shenyang aircraft designers posing in front of a T-10K carrier-based fighter prototype strongly suggest that the J-15 is directly related to T-10K. Negotiations stagnated as the Shenyang Aircraft Company sought to reduce Russian content in the aircraft, while Sukhoi wanted to ensure a level of income from future upgrades and modifications made to the J-11. India was also viewed as another potential operator of the Su-33. The Indian Navy planned to acquire the Su-33 for its aircraft carrier, the INS Vikramaditya, the refurbished Soviet Admiral Gorshkov, which was sold to India in 2004. In the end, the rival MiG-29K was opted for, because of the Su-33's outdated avionics. The size of the Su-33 reportedly led to concerns over potential difficulties in operating it off the Indian carriers, a constraint not shared by the smaller MiG-29K operators. Russian Navy, Russian Naval Aviation. Notable accidents. The 17th of July 2001, a Russian Navy Su-33 crashed during an airshow in Russia's Pskov region. The pilot, Major General Timur Rapakidze, died in the crash. The 5th of September 2005, a Russian Navy Su-33's arresting cable broke after landing on the Admiral Kuznetsov in the northern Atlantic at high speed. The pilot ejected and was recovered. The plane was initially planned to be destroyed with depth charges to prevent the recovery of classified equipment. However, this did not take place as the aircraft did not carry sensitive equipment. The crash was captured on video. Specifications. Data from NAPO, Sukhoi, Air Force Technology. Gordon and Davison, Williams. General characteristics. Crew. 1. Length 21.94 meters. Wingspan 14.70 meters. Height 5.93 meters. Wing area 62.0 square meters. Empty weight 18,400 kilograms. Loaded weight 29,940 kilograms. Max takeoff weight 33,000 kilograms. Power plant 2 times AL31F3 afterburning turbofans. Dry thrust 74.5 kilonewtons each. Thrust with afterburner 125.5 kilonewtons each. Wingspan, wings folded 7.40 meters. Performance maximum speed Mach 2.17 at 10,000 meters altitude. Stall speed 240 kilometers per hour. Range 3,000 kilometers. Service ceiling 17,000 meters. Rate of climb 246 meters per second. Wing loading 483 kilograms per square meter. Thrust weight 0.83. Maximum G load plus 8G. Landing speed 240 kilometers per hour. Armament 1 times 30 mm GSH-30-1 cannon with 150 rounds, up to 6,500 kilograms of munitions on 12 external hard points, including 6 times R-27 ET-M and 4 times R-73 air-to-air missile. KH-31A Krypton anti-ship missile, various bombs and rockets, electronic countermeasure pods.